In any economic decline, whether it's in long-term industrial decline as the north of England faced, or whether it's the current economic recession, people being thrown out of their jobs will immediately try and blame someone for that. And if they see asylum seekers who've been given refugee status and who are being allowed to stay here, successful asylum seekers in other words, if they see them taking the low-paid jobs, then people do get quite resentful. The fact is that there are an awful lot of people in this country who've lived here all their lives, who are born here, whose parents are born here, that wouldn't do some of those jobs. And therefore it's quite convenient to have a source of cheap labour, if you can put it that way. People who are so desperate to flee their own countries that they were given permission to stay in the UK, they'd come to the city of Leeds either because there were already people that they knew here, or more likely because they were dispersed here by the asylum system. Certainly educated people, and even non-educated people, do bring knowledge. They bring knowledge of their own history, knowledge of their own country, knowledge of their own language and culture to this country. So as well as learning, as well as them being of use to our country and our city, we can learn quite a lot from them.
My name is Francis. I'm originally from Zimbabwe and I'm a refugee in this country, and I've been here for almost 9 years or so. And I work with an organization called Umoja, which is a non-profit making organization that does performing arts, mainly drumming and dances. Back home, if there's a funeral, people drum and sing and dance. So it was at the funeral, my grandpa's funeral actually, that there was a drum lying around, and my very first time I just picked up and I started drumming, and I was 14 then, and from then on I never stopped drumming. Umoja has give and take 20 members. Most of them are refugees in this country. So yes, we find it as a way of engaging with the community and impacting the community basically. Half of it is entertainment. We do entertainments on special days when we're invited or hired to perform. Also, we do drumming therapy, whereby we help groups of people with either mental problems or stress-related problems. We take our drums with us and we give the drums to the patients, and there'll be a few of our drummers as well with them. So we'll be sort of teaching them to drum. And not just teaching them, we let them drum, or we drum together rather. We realize that the patients, they respond very well to those sessions. All the time that we have drumming sessions, there's always a full house. And that in itself, it's an indication that people like it and they want to come and engage in drumming, and I'm sure it's helping them in one way or the other.
City of Leeds School is a relatively small inner city high school. We have an induction course for newly arrived students that runs for a first week and a half, and we teach them how to find their way around school and teach them some English to be able to survive. Some of those students are refugees and asylum seekers. Some of them come from places where they've never been to school before, so that's quite a challenge for us to teach them how to hold a pen, how to sit in a chair and listen to a teacher, and how to follow instructions, how to put your hand up. 7 or 8 years ago, when we first started to take in significant numbers of refugees and asylum seekers, we were getting students from places like Angola. We were also getting students from Afghanistan. In the past, we've had students from places like North Korea and Cameroon, which is quite unusual, from Pakistan, from Somalia. We have quite a large number of students who come from Afghanistan. Generally speaking, those are boys, and some of those boys have come from their country all by themselves and are now currently looked after by social services and often are living independently and coming to school and managing their lives without any family or any support other than from the school and from the social services.
Schools like Carr Manor, for example, in my constituency, is very similar to the City of Leeds. It's a brand new school. It was opened by Prime Minister Tony Blair just before he finished his term of office. And it is fantastic. There are probably over 50 languages spoken there. And so you get friendships across the racial and religious boundaries that might be a barrier to adults, but certainly aren't to 11 or 12-year-olds.
It might sound like a bit of a cliche, but we are quite a big, happy family in this school. We're used to constant change and we respond very well to new students. A lot of these students have missed education and they really want to make up for it. So they come into our classrooms and they work hard and they're a joy to teach. They bring an experience of places that we've not been to and languages that we've never heard of before, and they share that with our students quite confidently. So we all learn something. Then we've got students who contribute in all sorts of other ways. We've got students who are ace footballers who've come from other countries and become top in our team and winning for our school around Leeds. We have musicians. We have one who's very interested in public speaking, has stood up for the school campaign, and an artist, one student who's come originally from Afghanistan, who's an amazing artist. Several years ago, we experienced our first asylum seekers, and they actually came from Slovakia. They were Roma families who were escaping harassment and prejudice in their country. And we became very involved with one particular family. And unfortunately, even though they did very well in school, they've fully integrated, they wanted to become British citizens, they were deported. There was one other student who was actually taken from school, which was horrific for all of us. He was only a young boy, and they came to get him. We had to bring him downstairs, and we had to make sure that we had someone who could go with him. And his only concern was that he'd brought his bike to school, and that he didn't want to leave his bike, so he actually gave it to another student, and he was taken away, and we never saw him again.
Well, I think inevitably when you hear the individual story, then that has to move you if you have any human heart. One very good example is a man who came over from Iraq before the invasion of 2003, escaping the oppression of Saddam Hussein, who had tortured him, imprisoned him, even managed to amputate 2 of his fingers as he was a joiner to stop him ever working again. And he'd finally fled. He was an Iraqi Christian, and he'd fled and he'd ended up in Leeds quite randomly. He came to see me because he was being refused asylum. They didn't believe that he was an opponent of the regime because the British government said, well, if you were a true opponent, you'd be dead. And so therefore, if you're not dead, you can't possibly be a real opponent. And we're not convinced of your story. You have no evidence to back it up. Well, of course, you don't leave Iraq with the evidence of your torture apart from the marks on your body. I went to see the then immigration minister. I had a meeting with her, and I explained this man's situation. His family was sitting in Amman, Jordan, waiting for a decision to be made about his future, which might then allow them to join him, a wife and young son. I told the minister that he would come to London, take his shirt off in front of her, and show her the scars on his back and the amputated fingers missing from his hand. She said, no, there's no need to do that. I will grant him refugee status. I will overturn the decision. And he was allowed to have his family join him. He's now a very useful member of society. He supervises a joinery shop in the city. He is in charge of a number of men and women who are involved in making furniture. It's a great success story. They had another child. Both children integrated very, very well in the community. Both have got Leeds accents. And they've become part of our society, and a welcome part.
My name is Elsa. I came from Ethiopia. I have been in the UK for 7 years. It's been a long time since I moved, so I am like a Yorkshire girl. In 2009, a guy called Salman met me, and he was explaining about community link and I wanted to volunteer because it's important that I tried to organize this kind of fashion show. Then the response I found from the community was really awesome, so I wanted to do it again. And it was really nice that the girls are coming out from their home, because it's fashion, it just touches everyone's heart, so everyone is involved. And I'm happy it's the way that we can express ourselves from a cultural point of view and show to the Leeds community what we have. And it's a good chance for Leeds community to understand the different cultures of Africa and to learn and to experience and get something out of it. So yes, it's important that
I'm not really a fashion person, but then obviously it's like you wear clothes day to day, and it's not just about the fashion, it's like it's a way of showing art. It's like art kind is conversation to everyone. It comes out in different ways, songs or pictures or drawing, paints, whatever. And this is also a new way of showing. Just fashion is like everyone, even though you say, oh no, I'm not a fashion person, you're always kind of excited about it. You wear something at the top to match your shoes, and like, so it's like everyone is involved in fashion, whether you know it or not. Is everyone involved in it? It's good, to show like what our culture is, and just to introduce some new things to us.
These girls are from college, some from family members who stay at home, and some of them start learning English. So it would encourage the girls to come out and empower them to see there is other way of life and make business out of it, or get something out of it and get together, be inspired and have fun as well. The music we use is called Seleme. It's from the southern part of Ethiopia. It shows the unity of the community and integration, so we have to go around hand in hand and make fun, walk around, and it just shows we can have fun, but it should be together. So it shows the togetherness.
Everybody here knows that. No child wants to leave their own country. No child wants to come to a high school in Leeds. They would probably much prefer to stay in their own country if they could. I think those students are very brave and very interesting, and are just a part of our school that just makes this school what it is. For me, for us here, so many of our students have had traumatic, horrific experiences. The refugees and asylum seekers who fled from persecution or war, even worse. This is a place of safety for them. They perhaps have difficult home lives here in Leeds, lack of money, they're separated from members of their family. City of Leeds School is here every day. They come here every day, and it's the same every day, and they know that there are staff here that they can come and talk to. They know that even with things outside of the immediate school remit, we will support them and get involved in their lives. So for us, the School of Sanctuary is a safe place to be, even when the rest of your world is mad.
Well, I hope that the work that this generation has done will set the tone for future generations. There are many schools in this city, primary schools especially, where the children of asylum seekers and refugees have been sent when they've come to this country. And they've enriched the school, they've increased the number of languages spoken there, they've certainly altered the culture of that school, and I think very much for the better. And so there are quite a number of schools where the arrival of refugee children has meant that there's much more diversity, and children being children, especially younger children, are completely accepting. So those children have been assimilated within the community of the school, and that obviously has changed the perceptions of children who were born in this city and who know nothing else but other children like themselves.
I think the future is very positive. I mean, I think if you have a model like ours, which is one of acceptance and genuine interest in people from other countries, and one where we all agree everyone has the right to learn, and everybody has to learn in their own particular way, and it's all about individuals, but all these individuals make up the whole that is our school. This is the way forward. It has to be that we all work together and that we all share as much as possible.